Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on which part of the world you are in. I have the absolute pleasure and privilege of introducing my good friend and a highly respected professor, Jochen Wirtz. His introduction is, very, interesting, and I'm stunned, every time I go through his bio. He is the Vice Dean at the National University of Singapore, which of course requires no introduction. Professor of Marketing, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and a consultant. He's an international fellow at the Service Research Center at Karlstad University, Sweden, an academic scholar at the Cornell Institute for Healthy Futures, and a global faculty of the Center of Services Leadership at Arizona State University in the US. Previously, he was the founding director of the UCLA NUS Executive MBA program, which was ranked number 6 globally as per the Financial Times 2016 EMBA ratings, and an associate fellow at the Saïd Business School, University of Oxford, from 2008 to 2013. A leading authority on services marketing and management, his research has been published in more than 100 academic journal articles, including 6 in Harvard Business Review. And he has received more than 45 awards in recognition of his excellence in research and teaching. His over 20 books include Services Marketing on People, Technology, and Strategy, Essentials of Services Marketing, and with the combined sales of more than 0.8 million copies, they become globally leading services marketing textbooks. His latest book for managers is Winning in Service Markets. He has worked with a number of international consulting firms, including Accenture, Arthur D. Little, and KPMG, and major service firms around the world. He's also been an angel investor in a number of startups, including DataSwift and TranscribeMe. He received his PhD from London Business School and holds a professional certification in banking. Originally from Germany, Professor Wirtz spent 7 years in London before moving to Asia. So today is a global jet setter, shuttling between the US, Asia, and Europe. So welcome once again, Professor. As I said, with an introduction like that, it's an absolute pleasure and privilege to have you on our discussion panel.
Dipu, it's my great honor and pleasure to be with you here.
Thank you so much. So we picked a very interesting topic for today, given Professor's expertise in this area. And the topic is, how intelligent automation, service robots, and AI will revolutionize the service sector. And we're all ears, we're all waiting with bated breath, to hear your answers. So let me set the ball rolling, with a fundamental question. With the rapid advances in technologies, especially in artificial intelligence, smart sensors, big data analytics, and robotics, the service industry began introducing robots to perform a variety of functions, which we all are aware of. So I'd like to ask you two questions on this front. One is, how do you see this evolution? And the other is, what is the major factor impacting this change?
So Dipu, this is a really interesting question, and that has been at the heart of my research for the last 6 years. We published a paper that has been the fastest cited paper ever in my career on service robots and how AI robotics will change the service sector as a whole. And I always tell my students and my children, you're lucky, because we will look back 50 years from now and we will say, wow, in the 2020s, this is when the service revolution really started. I always compare this to the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th century, which really brought us high quality, mass manufactured goods at ever lower prices. And with lower prices, we mean how long do you have to work to buy something like a pair of shoes or a handbag or something. And before the Industrial Revolution, you bought 1 or 2 pairs of leather shoes in your whole life almost, and the lady is saved forever to buy a handbag. Today, if you're middle class, you can buy almost as many shoes and handbags as you like. But in the service sector, this hasn't quite happened yet. There's still a scarcity and an affordability issue of many services, including healthcare, including education, including also leisure, entertainment, and so on. But there's an insatiable demand. And why do I believe in the service revolution? Is quite simple, because everything is coming together right now. The technologies involved here are getting cheaper, better, faster, smaller, almost by the month. And you could look at every corner of our economies. There's innovation pushing the boundaries of what we can do. And so I believe that a lot of services that are very scarce today will be virtually free going forward. Maybe not completely free, but more and more will go into that direction. And let me give you an example. We have a lot of what we call information type services, meaning anything you can do over the phone, anything you can do at an information counter, anything you can do by talking to someone, anything you can do on an app or on a website. These are all what we call information type services where I don't even have to touch anything physical. Yes, it's all intangible. And the incremental cost of delivering these services is rapidly going towards zero. And I call this the Googleization of service. You think about services like Google Maps, Google Mail, Google Scholar, AdWords, Google Search, and so on. I mean, the costs are close to zero, and there are more and more techs, whether it is health tech, whether it is fintechs, that go into the same direction. So, I mean, there are 2 UK startups. I mean, they're already many times unicorns over here. So they're valued several billions of dollars. That's Wise and Revolut. And I mean, I'm already with a discount broker online bank in Germany, but I switched to Wise a year ago for all of my international payments, international receipts, international credit card transactions. And I cut the fees compared to my online broker in Germany by over 95 to 99%. And it took me like 45 seconds to set up the account because it's a registered bank in Singapore, Wise. There is a sync pass, there's an online identification tool they plugged into with an API, and I'm up in business. I pay my developer in India. I get money from royalties in Australia, and all now at rock bottom cost. And I think that's where we are going with many, many services. And so the information type services, they're going the fastest into being automated. And we call this end-to-end for completely scalable automation of customer service processes. I mean, I've been with Wise for a year and a half. I have currencies and accounts and payments all over the world. I've never emailed to someone from Wise. I never chatted with someone from Wise. I never spoke to someone with Wise. So it's completely scalable in that sense. And that is really the future. Now you may ask, but what about physical type of services? And you look at LinkedIn or any of these websites, you know, they show you Boston Dynamics, the running dogs and dancing robots and all of that. Of course, that's also coming, but a little bit slower. Yes, the automation of customer contact centers will be fast and rapid and happening now. But even the physical robots, I mean, more and more are coming, let's say in healthcare and elderly care. I mean, Japan is leading. I mean, you look in the hospitals, the heavy lifting, carrying a patient from the bed into a wheelchair, from the wheelchair into a bathtub is heavy lifting. So in Japan, they already have robots for this. In Holland, they're experimenting with robots doing exercises with elderly, entertaining elderly, monitoring health of elderly. In Scandinavia, they're experimenting with little robots on the tables in kindergarten. So you still have 1 or 2 teachers for a class, but then every table of 4 or 5 kids has a little robot there. And it was so cute. They interviewed the children. I mean, what do you think about the robot teacher? Just, oh, we love him. He's so cute. And he never gets upset when we don't understand something, you know? So, I mean, we can really see this massive service revolution that has started and is gathering pace. And what I always tell people, we always overestimate what we can do in the next 12 months. But we completely underestimate the change we're going to see in the next 10 years. And I think it will be just the same. So, this I think is the future. I think it will be a huge benefit for humankind that things like education and healthcare now also will be offered much more on scale and at much lower cost, and will hopefully help many, many millions and millions of people around the world to lift them out of poverty.
Thank you so much, Professor. I think, that was a lovely answer, right? I mean, all your depth of academic research and, your knowledge across, horizons, came through. I think, for me, 2, 3 dimensions stood out. I think one is, the example you gave of, the feedback from children on robots, right? I think we're seeing a good, combination of, man and machine, right? From an emotional perspective creeping in. The other is, to the point that you made, today I think we're all global citizens, right? I mean, even if you're living in one country, right? I mean, you can operate on several dimensions, that way the world has shrunk. The third, I think, due to the rapid advancements in technology, the common man of today is leading a lifestyle which is far superior to some of the greatest kings, from history. So I think, that's how, the world is moving forward, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I'll now come to the, next question, Professor, which is, when you look at adoption of technology, it's obviously a major factor when it comes to the usage of new technology, because it's all about adoption. That's typically the question that people ask. So do you think, one, customers are ready to adopt the technology? We, of course, saw COVID, spiking a massive change in consumer behavior. And do you think we'll continue to see new behavior even in this post-COVID hybrid world?
Yeah, no, absolute spot on question. I think you're completely right. And I differentiate here between what I call more the legacy or the traditional companies that move into technology and end-to-end automation and robotics and AI, and the others I call the digital native companies. So Google, Wise, Revolut, Zoom, they're all digital native companies. And by definition, their customers, the minute they adopt, are in the digital world. And that also includes businesses like Airbnb, like Uber, like Ola and Didi. And there are many companies that are completely born digital, and they revolutionized and disrupted established industries. And let's say Wise is disrupting banking businesses, especially the full service kind of banks. And yeah, I mean, these banks, of course, they try to cut costs and drive efficiencies and productivity and drive new services. So they're very keen on shifting at least large parts of their business to digital. And I mean, how to do this? There's, of course, a lot of research there on how do you digitally. And I mean, so technically you can do promotions. For example, I mean, very few businesses send out paper-based invoices, account statements, and the like anymore. Most of them app or want to push you onto email delivery. Why? It's so much more sustainable. It's much cheaper. You're not wasting truck and petrol and printing and paper and all of that. And I mean, one thing what companies initially do here is they use promotions and incentives, lucky draws, maybe a discount and other things. And then once the majority is switched, then they switch it around. They say, look, our statements are free as long as you get them via email on an app. If you like a paper-based invoice, we're also happy to do this, but we're going to charge you 50 cents or $1 per statement because that are the cost of that. So, I mean, these are more traditional marketing promotions, marketing communications kind of approaches. The other is, of course, to design things that they are frictionless and seamless. So you want to push me onto an app or onto a website, make sure it works, make sure it's intuitive, make sure it's customer error tolerant, that I get into it. Yeah. So I think this is more the interim perspective, the next few years. I mean, I'm old enough that I was in the banking industry when ATMs had their big sort of growth period. So when I sort of joined banking, there were still customers who go inside the branch to cash money, and they didn't like to go to the ATM. But today, I would think that 99.99% of all cash withdrawal transactions are on ATMs. And why? They work. We know how to use them. They are everywhere. They're 24/7, And I think an AI chatbot, for example, has exactly the same benefits. I don't have to wait for a call center agent in a queue and be online and da. No, a chatbot doesn't have the same capacity constraints and is available whenever I want to talk to a chatbot. So I think it's in the interim, you will have to do the design, the communications, the promotions, the nudging to get people. But long term, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, you think about it. how many people in the world still use physical maps and how many people use Google Maps or other apps. So I mean, it's and I think whether it is telehealth or whether it is language. I just saw a new business, and what they do is they have digital people, digital instructors. So there's one instructor who teaches you Mandarin or English or whatever language, and it's a real life person, but that person then gets digitized. So that person's pronunciation and everything is being used to have your own personal instructor. So the cost of having that real person there may cost you $30 an hour. The same person having there as an AI, as a digital person, may cost you, I don't know, probably the incremental cost is like 10, 50 cents per hour. So the cost differential is so big that I think over the long run is a no-brainer that in 10 years, most of our language instructors, at least for basic introductory to intermediate learning of a language, will be a digital personalized instructor with personal memory about your own strengths and weaknesses and how to improve and all of that. And that person will be, or the digital person will be more effective than any human teaching you. So I think short term, yes, we have to worry about it, but long term, just the quality benefits, the accessibility benefits, the cost and productivity benefits are just so huge that I think it's a mute question to ask in 10 years from now.
No, again, thank you for for a very comprehensive answer, Professor. And the example of having a digitized language teacher, it struck a chord. And I think what we are likely to see, in the post-COVID world is initially the accent was on digitizing the physical. How do you ensure that you're in the digital realm so that you can continue to offer uninterrupted servicing? But now that we're in a hybrid world, the owners have shifted to humanizing the digital. How do you give the best of both, right? You bring in the efficiency and the scalability of digital assets, yet to do it with the human touch. And I think the digitized teacher, I think, is a lovely example because one is a cost angle you referred to, the other is availability, right? A teacher will come during, let's say, normal day, daytime hours, and you may be free only in the morning or late in the evening, so you can just avail of the digitized teacher services whenever you want. So I think we are in for a very interesting world. Thank you. Yes. I'll now move to the next question, which is, this term called digital, right? With this evolution of digital and physical, we are seeing this new world of digital getting developed, where physical and digital, will merge with boundaries which are not very well defined. And do you think, as per your own research and understanding, that this field, the digital field, has a great future? And if so, will there be any differentiating boundaries between machines and human beings?
Well, that's a very good question. And I mean, one thing we always say is AI robots don't have agency. They don't say it's Friday afternoon, I so look forward to the weekend where we'll be reading a book or sit on the beach. Machines don't do that. And as long as the core value proposition of the service is either social or emotional, we still need people to deliver this kind of value proposition to customers. So that could be marriage counseling, PhD supervision, an adventure tour, whitewater rafting where you scream and shout and are excited. You wouldn't do this with a robot. You will do it with another human being. Having said that, I mean, there is still before and after a service, even to a restaurant, right? I like to know, is there parking? What's the menu? Where's the table? Can I have a quiet table? Can I make a reservation? Can I change the reservation? And all of those things, if the restaurant still runs that over a telephone answered by a human, they're wasting a lot of resources and customers don't even like it. Most of the time, I prefer to go onto an app and I change the reservation myself. I see, can I come an hour later or the next day or something? So it's often the before and then also the after. If there's some follow-up, there is payment, there's, I don't know, account updating and so on. So I mean, even if the core of the service is social or emotional, there's still a lot of surrounding stuff that's going on that could be automated here. And let me give you another example. I mean, I just worked with Bayer, the German pharmaceutical company, on telemedicine. They're having a major push into that. And two examples here. One is you go for surgery and you go after a week or 2 weeks, the surgeon wants to see you again. I mean, is it all healed and good, or is there a complication here? And what they've done now here in Singapore is, because of COVID, they don't want so many people to come to the hospital. And of course, for surgery, you have to be there, absolutely, right? But the surgeon will tick whether the surgeon will need to see you again, or whether it is okay to just see you via telemedicine. So if the surgeon thinks everything is fine, most likely there's no problem here, let's just connect in a week over WhatsApp and you show me the surgery and I'll have a look, is that infected or does it all look clean? If it all looks clean, I say, hey, thank you so much, you look good. I mean, if there's a problem, call us, but other than this, you're fine. And you think about it, I mean, I as a patient love it because, I mean, I don't have time. It takes me a long time to go to hospital and wait and see the doctor and all of this. And there's no value added. Here is also where the physical and the virtual here is merged. And going forward, I mean, in Singapore now, a telemedicine visit to a GP, I can now get the health insurance to pay for it. I can get the doctor to write a prescription and do a diagnosis over telemedicine, over WhatsApp or whatever they use, or Zoom. And I can send you the medication via a pharmacy with home delivery. And I know so many people now who so prefer telemedicine, because if I am ill, I have a headache, I have a running nose, I have fever, I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to get dressed and go to somewhere to a doctor and get medicine and get a medical certificate for my employer. If I can do all of that on Zoom, it is a fantastic value added here. So this is still people and technology together. And the minute you have telemedicine, you can have in the back end also intelligent automation and analytics and other things that help you to run diagnosis, where I can look at your records, I can look at your symptoms, you can show me skin patches. I mean, there's a startup in Australia now that can, if you have a phone with a smartphone, you can just cough into the smartphone, and with a 98% probability, it can detect whether you have COVID or not, because the COVID cough is different. Yeah. So, I mean, there is so much stuff coming now. If I can connect my Fitbit to a health app, to telemedicine, I mean, if you spin this where we're going to go in 5 years with all of this, that actually this telemedicine together with Fitbit and camera and cough and microphone is probably better than today a physical visit to the doctor. Yeah. So, I mean, absolutely the physical and the digital will merge. And the fastest thing, as I mentioned earlier, is end-to-end automation of all types of information type processes here. But for those where there's still physical touching, shifting, poking, and whatever involved, we will combine the physical and the digital.
Yeah. Thank you. I found that, cough example, really fantastic, right? Because it's touchless and remote, right? Just cough from where you are, and then, you make out if you are positive or not. It just saves a lot of time and effort for people. And I was just thinking, as you were speaking, in the future, you never know, right? Because we've seen science fiction becoming reality as we move into the future. Today, we are talking about, all these, digital devices, being accessories. For all tomorrow they may become, body appendages, right? You may need to plug them into your body at various parts. And who knows, tomorrow you may even, read somebody's mind, right? That could be useful as well as dangerous, right? I mean, then there is nothing left.
Yeah, Dipu, I'm pretty sure that sensors will be in people's bodies, and whether it's temperature and other things that are being measured, especially for people at risk. If you're at risk of a stroke or a heart attack, or you have a pacemaker, or you have diabetes, I'm pretty sure that this will be connected via Bluetooth to your phone and will be monitored. I mean, the technology is here already. It's just insurance doesn't quite pay for it yet, but that will come.
Yeah. So my next question, Professor, is a logical corollary to this one. So based on what we have discussed, right, what do you see as the implications for service firms, in terms of customer experience, cost, and, the whole landscape?
Yeah. Well, absolute brilliant question. And of course, nobody can see the future, but we are working on a research project right now where we look what happened in the Industrial Revolution, what happened to companies then, and we try to draw parallels, what happens in the service revolution here. And I mean, at the first thing, Industrial Revolution built scale, and that meant a lot of small businesses just went under. All the independent, I mean, many of them went under, and it was what was left was a few large companies. And it seems that we will get more or less the same in the service sector as well. And there still will be the handcrafted type of service, but like in luxury handbags where you have Louis Vuitton and Hermes, it will also be in services, but at a significant price differential to the automated services. Let's say financial services, the cost may be going close to zero because there will be massively large scalable businesses that emerge out of the fintechs that have a fraction of the cost and prices of traditional banks. And we have way too many banks in this world anyway. So my guess is that there will be massive consolidation happening here, number one. Number two, in the labor market, we have armies of call center staff, and we have armies of staff also in physical shops, whether it is retail assistants or whether it is people in restaurants. A lot of that will be automated. We will need much fewer low skilled types of employees than we have now. I mean, I was used, let's say, information counter at the airport. Currently, every terminal in Singapore has at every level a counter with staff. It's expensive real estate, it's expensive headcount. I promise you in a few years from now, there will be a holograph in the airport every 50 meters, including the car park where currently you can't ask anyone. And that holograph will speak the 20 most common languages from Hindi to English to Chinese to German. Yeah. And there will still be people because they all are connected via Wi-Fi, and all terminals and all levels have these digital people holographs. They're interacting with customers and passengers, but there will be a central unit behind it. And that means if a interaction doesn't go well and the AI cannot effectively address a passenger's question, it gets escalated to a human person behind. But that means I need much fewer staff, but I need much better staff because only the tricky, difficult questions get escalated. And I think the same is going to be in most call centers, where the same will happen here. I think this is a massive change. So a competitive advantage through better hiring and training and managing armies of low-level staff, that skill set will be much less important going forward. The new skill sets we need is how do you design these technologies to be so intuitive, so frictionless, so easy customer journeys, so customer error tolerant, that they work, that customers don't have to talk to anyone anymore. I think that these are the main changes here. I think that will happen here.
Yeah. The other thing I think, which we've seen, Professor, adding to what you said is, the digital world becomes a leveler, in terms of customers comparing assets, like you spoke about AI-driven bots, customers do not compare your bot with your peers, right? They compare it with the best experience they've had, across industries, right? So you may have non-linear experiences coming in, right? You need to just cast your net wide and far, right? And then see who has the best experience in that asset, across industries. And I think therefore you're going to see a lot of, cross-pollination, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Very interesting perspective so far, Professor, and I'm sure, the audience has enjoyed it. Since we want more, I'll have one last question, which is, we've seen a lot of hype and halo around blockchain, a few years ago. And now we are talking about metaverse, right? So how do you see, various such technologies, which form a critical part of the fourth industrial revolution, getting adopted and used, in the service industry?
I think there is innovation in every corner of our economies here. There are many people currently, and a lot of dollars being invested here on precisely what to do with blockchain, what to do with metaverse, what to do with whatever technology here to drive that. And I'm confident that all of these technologies will find their place. Who will dominate? Whether that may be Facebook or Meta, right? Or that maybe somebody else, maybe a firm that doesn't quite exist yet or we don't know about yet. This we don't know. I mean, every major shift in technology in the past brought about new champions, new dominating players. I mean, IBM and Microsoft and Google and Facebook then, and an iPhone, Apple again. So there was always a new player, and I'm quite confident too that there will be new players we don't know about yet, but it definitely will come. I mean, just think about it. I mean, metaverse, I mean, at the moment is a bit clumsy. So I attended some conference in the metaverse. I mean, the avatars and so, I mean, okay, yes, it's not too exciting yet. But I promise you, in a few years, it will be Dipu and me sitting over a drink, chatting in the metaverse, and we feel like we're almost sitting opposite each other. And maybe you have a glass of wine in front of you, and I have one here, and again, the reality and the virtual world are mixing. And you just think about this, whether it is education classrooms, whether it is you want to be at the top of the Eiffel Tower, or you want to see the Taj Mahal, or you want to see the Forbidden City, or I mean, if you can get a realistic 3D experience, I mean, I can see so many potential applications that can help here. I mean, blockchain, whether it is Bitcoins or, we don't know. Currently, it's too energy intensive to actually be widely adopted. The currency or the value fluctuates way too much to be useful at the moment. But hey, blockchain and the distributed ledger have a lot of other applications that are very, very exciting each time, where you need to have a reasonably foolproof record of what are the transactions and what happens. And it seems if you don't have so much trading in something, that these kind of technologies are working fantastically. It's only if it's so big, like for a Bitcoin here, that the energy intensity goes up. But let's say if you want to have the land registry on a blockchain, for example, or you want to have a certain art piece or a bond issue on blockchain, transactions are much less, energy efficiency is much less of a concern, and there seem to be very exciting applications. And I know Bajaj Allianz, I mean, I'm so impressed by your Travel Ease product, which is also blockchain based. So that's also point and proof here.
No, thank you, Professor. And I think, 2 points struck me, as you were speaking. I think one is, we keep reading about, an idea whose time has come. I think, some technologies, are possibly ahead of their time. And sometimes, of course, they are late to the party, So I think timing is critical, because a lot of these born digital companies, for instance, if they had been conceived, during the .com era, right, which of course went bust subsequently, they may not have been able to succeed, because at that time people did not have smartphones, right? You didn't have that mass internet base, whereas today, it's a different situation. The other is, we have always believed, customer first, technology second. If the technology solves a customer problem or offers a new experience to customers, then it is, of course, likely to be in vogue and, get sustained. So just my 2 bits on that. But Professor, thank you very much. I think, very wide ranging and, answers with, a lot of, research and academic depth, which of course we expected from you. I'm sure the audience enjoyed it, as much as I did. Thank you so much. And we look forward to, having you on our show once again, in the not too distant future. But thank you once again for taking out time and, sharing your very valuable insights.
Thank you, Dipu. It was an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you.
Thank you.